Good afternoon, Frank.
Hello, Professor.
A lot has happened since we talked last.
You're not
Uh,
kidding.
and at the moment, of course, the most interesting things are what's going on in Montreux over Syria, which doesn't seem to be getting anywhere, and it's difficult to see how it can. But also what's going on in South Sudan.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, um, and I think that they're both examples of the same sorts of globalization problem, but one is much more extreme than the other. And I think that probably South Sudan deserves more attention than Syria, actually, because it's in this close to the center of Africa, and few people know anything about it, and very little is. We get very little detail that really means anything in the press. And it's particularly interesting to anybody who's had any background in anthropology, because some of the great anthropological classics were written about the people who are now the population of South Sudan, starting in the 1920s, but particularly in the following decades. And it's very interesting to see that a country like that was quite quickly, although I suppose some people would say it took a long time, recognized internationally as a nation state, separating from another nation state, which was a very strange combination of
Yes.
people to begin with. But there's absolutely nothing in the population of what is now South Sudan that gives them any reason to work together as a single polity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so what's happened is that we've drawn boundaries for them, and we've given them a structure and told them to play the game. As we gave them the rules, they've got to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's obviously not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a wonderful example of a general situation that we find here and there all over the world, but in no case, I think, quite as extreme as South Sudan, where different populations are at different stages of growing social complexity in the modern world. And as globalization progresses, they each have to deal with all the others at different levels of complexity, and they can't do it. And the Afghanistan situation is similar to that. The Pakistan situation is similar to that. South Sudan is just an extreme example.
Yet on 60 Minutes on Sunday evening, Bob Simon, who's a very qualified journalist, and in fact one of his claims to fame that I'm sure is listed on his resume is that Saddam Hussein had actually captured him during the 1990 Kuwait War for 36 hours. Simon revisited the lost boys of Sudan, who are now in their mid to late 30s, living throughout the United States. And several of them expressed tremendous satisfaction and pride that the South Sudan had emerged as an independent, separate sovereign nation, and viewed it as being a de facto end to the genocide pattern that had led them here in the first place.
Well, I don't see how they're going to get all the different ethnic groups there to agree on a president from one of them.
Let me ask a question. I always forget this. Where is the oil there? In the north or the south?
It's in the north. It's on the boundary. It's the oil fields straddle the border between North and South Sudan, Sudan and South Sudan.
Okay.
I forget now just exactly how many tribal populations that are becoming now different ethnic identities there are, but it's a large number.
Mm-hmm.
They have no record of doing things together. And what they need is, there's a lot of educated people there who, if they had coaching and some authority, could probably work out a constitution that would fit the population there,
Mm-hmm.
that we could start working with. But that's not the way it's being done.
Right, right. It's almost as if we we sold them the car and handed them the keys and left. We being the West,
Yeah.
at the
No, I mean,
UN.
there's the Washington model and there's the Westminster model.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
suppose there's also the Moscow model and the Beijing model, but
Hmm.
we're not offering them those.
Hmm.
And I don't think there's any other models that are ever offered.
No, no. So what do you speculate will occur there? More
Well,
encroachment from the North?
I don't know. I think that the only thing that can be done is getting the people who currently have authority to sit down and talk, and then moving more and more UN troops to stop fighting throughout the country in there,
Hmm.
and getting UN assistance in coaching people in political institutions. But
Hmm.
that's big investment.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure that the UN is really prepared to do that.
No, no, I don't think they are. I mean, it's only now, after the terrible violence in the Central African Republic, that they're half-heartedly backing the effort to go in with a multinational force of a very small group of military personnel to react to that violence. So
Mm-hmm.
let me circle back, if I may, to Montreux. Um,
Yeah.
I must tell you that the Iranians seem to have not lost not a step from the ancient Persians of millennium ago. I mean, they have really. I mean, if you look at where they were a year ago compared to where they are now, it's
Uh,
astonishing to me.
yeah.
I mean, they're practically back on the main stage,
Well, but they're very sophisticated people.
evidently.
And I mean, the foreign minister is somebody that I've had lunch with and enjoyed talking to, and he's up to it. He knows what
Hmm.
he's doing. The gradually, in fact, I think probably not so gradually, but fairly quickly, Kerry and people at his
At his
level
level,
are
right?
going to
Ashton and others, yeah.
get used to who they're talking to.
Hmm. Now, I find the reaction of the Saudis to be amazing. I mean, they're like practically hysterical. I mean, they're bombarding Beirut with money, billions of dollars of money, anything. I
Uh-huh.
mean, is there no possibility that that aging Sunni leadership in Riyadh would ever, at some point, be able to come to an understanding with Tehran, or is it that Tehran would never want to come to an understanding with them? And what's going to happen?
To begin with, Iran is a democratic country, even though we don't like its democratic model,
Hmm.
but it is a democratic country. Um, Saudi Arabia is that looking on the same model that they established in the 1930s, and as the population increases, they expand the model.
Hmm.
And I think that Saudi Arabia is right to be worried, but I don't think they have a hope of continuing the way they are.
No.
Um, I think that the sectarian struggle that's obviously part of it now, which is a big thing in Lebanon as well. So I don't know what the Saudis think they're going to achieve in Lebanon. Is a phase and that we're going through, and it won't last too long. And the fact that the Shia generally are fairly sophisticated groups in each of the countries that they're in is going to mean that they will be able to modernize quicker than the Sunnis.
Hmm. Hmm. I don't think that it spells anything good for the Arabian Peninsula because I have agreed with you for some time that the Sunni regime, excuse me, in Saudi Arabia is not long for this world.
No, and there's a big Shia minority in Saudi Arabia that
There is.
they keep under control,
Hmm.
and it's the same with the Gulf Emirates. And Bahrain is the one that's having all the trouble, and
Right,
at the moment, Saudi Arabia is trying to hold that down.
right.
No, I think the Middle East is going to change a lot in the next few decades, and it's going to get much worse than it is now. And I'm an optimist. I
Right.
just think the things are going to come out okay in the end, but I think the road there is going to be very difficult.
Well, what would happen if someone like Khatami uh, just basically stood up and said, after 1,400 years of fighting between each other, let's at least agree to coexist, and the Sunni and the Shia simply agree to disagree?
Well, that's happened over the last 150 years. And for a while, there was a move to make the Shia recognized as the fifth school of law in Islam. But the trouble is that things have got very complicated just in the last few decades because of Khomeini. Because as long as the Shia were obviously politically weaker than the Sunni could put up with them. Now, all of a sudden, since 1980, the Shia have become more inspiring to ordinary people in the Middle East. That is, ordinary people who have not made up their minds to push the Islamist agenda. That they've become a big difficulty for the Sunni.
Well,
The success of the Iranian model is going to make things very difficult for the Saudi monarchy.
and it's very interesting that you say that, because I don't think anybody in Washington, although maybe nowadays they would, but certainly not 12 months ago, would have been able to have said that sentence, the success of the Iranian model. But you're exactly right. I mean, and that has to be recognized. It's almost back to recognizing what the excesses of the Chinese Communist Party in the mid 60s and the Cultural Revolution and everything else, but there was a begrudging acknowledgement that famine in China had now ended.
Yeah.
They at least were able to feed everybody. So it's almost the same kind of thing with Iran. It's you've gone from,
what's he going to do to Congress?
what,
If Barack Obama manages to preside over the rehabilitation of the Iranian model, it's I wonder what the reaction is going to be in the 2016 election.
I think you could take it to the bank that President Obama is going to preside over the reemergence of the Iranian model. I mean, I think it's inevitable for a lot of the reasons you said.
But I wonder whether it will make things easier for Hillary or for Christie. I don't know.
Christie, oh my,
Christie may be out of the game.
Are we going to go there? Well, that's a globalization issue. Traffic is a big problem. You know that. It's one of the big things coming in all these emerging mega urban areas. Traffic, and traffic. And now you have the government intentionally, seemingly closing lanes, making it more difficult. So, but before we go there, let me ask you a little bit about Syria. I think it's fascinating now that, again, to take something in one sentence between the periods, quote, President Assad must be part of any transitional government. And the last time I checked, the verb transition, to transition means to go from one to another. So, I mean, are they admitting that perhaps change is in the offing no matter what?
I don't know. Who actually said that? I can't remember.
I was a spokesman for Assad. I don't know who it was. It was somebody in.
I understood it to mean that he's going to be, he's there now. He'll be part of the transition. He'll be part of what the transition changes
evolves into. I don't know. I don't know if that third punchline was.
That's how I understood it. But I mean, the problem is not only Assad, but how they're going to get all the different minorities in Syria to live together without, in some sort of free society. I mean, globalization is making everybody feel that they should have a stake in what's going on. And the only way things worked in places like Syria was if somebody could put the lid on, which is what was done by Saddam Hussein in Iraq and by Assad in Syria and, of course, by other people in other countries. And the lid is coming off in each country.
Right. And what globalization has done with Syria, for example, is the same people that had interest in Syria 2 years ago have now been augmented exponentially. There are all new groups there: Hezbollah, Al Qaeda, the West, Western intelligence services. I mean, the list just goes on. And to try to satisfy all of them now in any resolution, it's you're back to almost talking about a situation like the South Sudan.
Yeah.
And you're still an optimist.
Well, you see, the faster things change, the longer your perspective becomes, and I reckon that in the end, everything will turn out okay.
Well, things are changing very quickly. There's no doubt about that. No doubt. Well,
Okay.
all right, Professor, thank you very much.
See you
We'll
next
look
week.
forward to talking to you next week is right.